Hi, back for another beer review, and today is another installment of what I am calling Macro Monday here on the channel. So every couple weeks, I am going to review a beer on Monday from some of your bigger macro breweries or some macro-esque beers from maybe some craft breweries. So anyway, the beer I have today comes from Anheuser-Busch, and they're headquartered in St. Louis, Missouri, and this is their Busch Beer. So this is American Adjunct Lager that comes in at 4.3% alcohol by volume. No IBUs. Listen, time of review, don't know exactly how old this can is, but it does have a best by date of May 7th of 2023. We're about 6 weeks away from that date. So according to Anheuser-Busch, we should be okay. So Busch, I honestly can't remember the last time I've had this beer. I would say it's been at least 15 years. I probably haven't had this beer since back in the 2000s. I've actually had Busch Light more recent than this beer, and I also reviewed on the channel Busch Light Apple, which honestly for a cheaper fruit beer, pretty damn delicious and great value. But anyway, so this beer, I picked this one up because at one of my local grocery stores that has a pretty awesome craft beer selection, they had some beers that were on sale just like kind of in the cooler, just like on a shelf. I don't know why, but this was one of them, and it was $1. So I was like, you know what? I'll pick up a 16-ounce can of Busch Beer and review it for Macro Monday. I also got a beer from Energy City, one of their heavily fruited sours for like $3.99 a can, when typically those are like $6 to $7 here. So some pretty good deals to be had. So I grabbed this. So yeah, anyway, I really don't know a lot about Busch Beer. I will say that I did try to look up a little information, see, do they use corn, rice? Apparently they use both corn and rice. So I thought that was interesting. I did not know that. I thought this would be maybe a rice beer, kind of, because it's owned by Anheuser-Busch, Budweiser, whole thing. But no, it's corn and rice. So anyway, that's looking super light. And it's 4.3%. Typically the light beers are around 4 to 4.2. So this being a regular American Adjunct Lager, that's 4.3 is kind of interesting. So we're using the Jenny Cream Ale glass because we're going to do all the Macro Mondays out of Jenny Cream Ale glass. But yeah, so this can is a little beat up, but everything's fine about it. Like I said, it's in date, all the whole nine. So I got a little bit of dirty glass mafia here on the Jenny glass. So yeah, that looks super. Like, this is one of the lightest beers I've ever reviewed on the channel. It is like a golden straw color, but it's so clear. Like, the clarity through this is absurd. Had about a finger of an bright white soap sudsy looking head that is now dissipated to maybe like a quarter of a head. Tons of carbonation. This has the etching in the bottom. Hold it up to the light. Yeah, like this is a fizzy yellow beer, as some folks would say. Anyway, let's get nose. Nondescript, kind of like grainy, corny, kind of malt sweetness in the nose. Maybe a very slight touch of like a red apple core, or maybe even like a little bit of citrusy, like lemon going on. A very faint hint of like an earthy bitterness, but very faint. This just smells like a lot of sweet malt, right? A lot of adjunct lagers are that exactly. My favorite adjunct lagers are the ones that do a good job balancing, not too sweet, so you can crush a lot of them. This one just smells a bit sweeter than most. But I will say this, it smells inoffensive. There's nothing in the aroma making me gag, making me go, oh, this is gonna be terrible. It's just kind of very subdued and lacking to some extent. So let's get into it. Cheers, everybody. Ain't nothing wrong with that. Yeah, it's a very inoffensive 4.3% American Adjunct Lager that honestly doesn't have a ton of flavor, which, listen, if you're trying to drink a bunch of these and get a buzz on or get drunk or whatever, for the price point and stuff, this would work well. There's not a lot of flavor here. Body's like a bit under medium, so 4.3% has a decent amount of body. The mouthfeel, it being American Adjunct Lager, it's crisp, it's clean, it's really refreshing. It's this on a hot sunny day or after doing some yard work, yeah, you could throw this back in a matter of seconds and be refreshed and feeling good. But I'm going to be bullshitting you here if I'm going to sit here and tell you that there's a shit ton of flavor to this one, because there's not. There's a graininess up front, a grainy kind of malt sensation. It's not like heavy on the corn, which is nice. It just has like a barley kind of feel to it, and it's sweeter. Passes through the palate. about halfway to 3/4 of the way through the palate, I get hit with this very slight, like earthy bitterness. The bitterness in this is almost non-existent. It's like very mild. If we did it on a scale of 0 to 100, this is like a 5 in terms of bitterness, just a little bit of bitterness. But I will say, what I am appreciating as I drink this beer, there is a pretty big dryness. So this isn't one of those American Adjunct lagers that after a couple cans, I'm going to be hating it because it's just sweet. It actually has a pretty solid balance from that aspect. There's a touch of like a red apple skin as opposed to the core that I'm getting halfway through the palate as well. This is probably one of the most inoffensive American Adjunct lagers I've had, but it also is one of the most, this sounds so bad to say, but like flavorless or lacking a flavor. And that's not necessarily a bad thing with this style. Again, you don't want something that's going to be over the top and weighing down your palate, which I totally get. I do wish there was a little bit more flavor to this because the flavor that's there isn't bad. I just wish there was a little bit more, like a little bit more intensity. But this is super crushable and easy. And honestly, like I said, I haven't had this beer in probably at least 15 years, so I don't remember what I thought about it. But typically, beers that I've had in the past, if I have like a strong opinion one way or the other, you know it. With this, kind of just like forgettable, and it's kind of forgettable. It's not bad at all. So pour the rest in here, and I'll give it a rating. So on the American Adjunct Lager scale, I can't go too high just because it doesn't have a ton of flavor. But I will say this, no matter what I give it rating-wise here and whatnot and what I've said about this, the way I can sum this one up is if you're looking for a cheaper American Adjunct Lager, a macro lager that you can pick up in a lot of different spots and isn't going to be offensive. And that's a key thing. Some of these beers are offensive to certain people. Some people would love this beer and some people might hate it. I feel like, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe some people hate this beer, but for me, there's nothing really to hate because there's not a lot going on. So I feel this is like an approachable beer for almost anybody, but I don't think this is going to be anybody's favorite beer, especially if you like craft beer and you can still appreciate American Adjunct lagers and macro lagers in general. I don't think you're going to be seeking this one up just because it doesn't have a lot of flavor. But anyway, American Adjunct Lager wise, just because it's inoffensive and really I'm not hating it, I'm going to give this I'll give this a 3.5 out of 5 as far as an American Adjunct Lager goes. My own personal preference, I will give this I'm not going to go much lower. I'll give it a low 3.25. I'll go 3.2 out of 5 as far as an overall beer is concerned. I've had, and this is the beauty about a beer like this, and I think, you know, there's craft beer snobs out there that'll be like, oh, craft beer is better, craft. And listen, drink what you like. Doesn't matter if you like craft beer or macro beer, or you should drink what you like. You like seltzers, have fun at it. I'm not going to sit here and ever critique anybody for drinking whatever they like. But I've had some really horrific craft beers that are substantially worse to a beer like this. So when I get something like this, I'll be honest with you, I'm probably never going to buy this beer again, but I would not, not drink it ever again. Like if I went to a barbecue or a party and somebody handed me a can or a bottle of this, yeah, I would easily drink this. Nothing wrong with it. But I can't say that about some craft beer because some craft beer is absolutely disgusting to me. Like I've had a lot of shitty beers before that are craft. Just because it's craft doesn't make it better. So anyway, price point availability, I paid $1 for that can. I do think 6 packs of this were like $5.49, and came in 12 packs, I think they're $10, and then 30 packs are like $18. Your mileage may vary depending upon where you live, but again, this is a cheap macro beer that you can get at a lot of places, so yeah, bang for buck is pretty good. And then availability, like I said, it's Busch, it's from Anheuser-Busch. You should see this in a lot of places. And I have nothing else to say about this one other than if you've had this one before, post in the comment section, let me know what you thought about it. Now I'm curious to try Busch Light after this because this is already light and kind of flavorless to my palate. So I'm curious to see where Busch Light is. I will say that Busch Light Apple is still pretty delicious. And I think they're bringing out something new this summer that's not Busch Light Apple, which is disappointing because I might actually buy that. That's like a low ABV fruit beer that's cheap and pretty damn good. Anyway, done with the rant. Check back. Like I'm trying to do these every 3 weeks because there's not a shit ton of macro lagers. There are, but like I don't want to do them every week because over the next year, I will drink the vast majority of them. So I'm doing them every 2 or 3 weeks. We'll probably do 1 or 2 a month. So I don't know what I'm going to do next time, but I do have a good list from a lot of you out there. Again, if you have a recommendation of a macro beer, an American Adjunct Lager that you would like to see me review, let me know and I'll put it on the list and I'll get to it as soon as possible. Anyway, appreciate everybody stopping by for another beer review here on the Beer Patrol. To the next one. Cheers.